Talk and Power, your motorsport and motoring radio show. Now on 88.5 FM, The Valley Comes Alive. And podcasting across iTunes and talkandpower.com.au.
All right, welcome to episode 161 of the Talk and Power podcast. I'm here with co-host Johnny Alardi, and we've got a special guest in the studio with us today. I'm host Nick DeCembra. We're here with Mitchell Rando. Mitchell, thanks for joining us.
No problems at all.
I won't say started a tradition, but we've started a tradition last year. We got Simon Birch on the podcast because he was Motorvation 36 winner. And I thought, I like this idea. I think we need to continue it going and get every year we have the Motorvation Grand Champion winner on the podcast. So I thought, well, let's keep that going. And here we are with you this year. The Motorvation 37 for 2023 Grand Champion winner. How does that sound to you, like when people say that?
Well, it was a pretty big surprise to even get it. We nearly didn't even enter. It was about 2 week before entry. I think I was like entry number 400 and something. So I was pretty late. Wanted to go back, bit of unfinished business and give the car a shot, but definitely didn't expect to be anywhere near even competing for Grand Champion. So it was pretty big surprise even to be there.
Yeah, really? Okay. All right. Yeah, because I know you were in it the year before, and I thought maybe the car wasn't quite completed, or there was things.
Car was completed as far as the build had just finished, but no real testing or anything like that. So it was actually nothing to do with the car's fault why it went wrong. I guess the calibration of the fuel gauge wasn't something I was used to, and it went from it was just below or hitting on empty, and I thought I should be right. Turns out I probably should have filled it up before he got to Motorvation. I probably would have been fine and finished the whole weekend.
Yeah, okay.
But, yeah.
Yep. We'll talk about testing in a minute and those sorts of things, because motivation isn't just the car, is it? There's a lot of aspects to being the Grand Champion, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But before we get into that, I guess you need to tell us what got this passion started for cars.
I probably started with cars when I was 16, but I was always loved cars. But my old man was a rev head back when he was a young bloke, and he was a mechanic. I wanted to be a mechanic. He talked me out of it, said you'll hate it, and here I am in IT. But I've still always had that passion of cars the whole time. I think I've had a car in the shed and one on the road pretty much the whole time since I was 16 right the way to now, as much to my wife's disgust.
Yeah. Does that help being out of the industry?
I think so. I think if I actually worked in it full time, I wouldn't have the same drive to do my own cars, because you sort of I've got lots of friends that are like that, big rev heads, but their own cars are usually the last one to get touched. So, yeah.
Is that because you're in the industry?
Yeah, well, I agree with your own cars get the last one, are always the last ones to get touched. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially in the cleaning side of things, it's like, oh man, you're just cleaning cars all day. The last thing you want to do is yours.
Yeah.
It makes a difference of going to an event and not going to an event. Sometimes it's like, you know what, it needs to present well, whether a detailer or not. So you might just go, I'll just sit this one out because.
Yeah. I've often wondered that as well, because I'm not in the industry either. So I often think to myself, would I be like this if I was? And I'd sometimes think I probably wouldn't. I think you're right. Like, it may be a help not being in the industry, and it's more of a passion. And it's a time away from work, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Look, when I get home from using my head all day and in front of a computer, I guess it's a big outlet, using your hands and fixing issues on cars and assembling something or pulling something apart.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I've always been interested in knowing that. Well, let's get back to Grand Champion. I'm going to say this wholeheartedly, but it takes a lot of skill, not just in building the car, but it also takes a lot of skill on the track as well, doesn't it? So what I mean by that is, so the Grand Champion, what people need to understand is you basically need to win the 8th mile, go to Woe, and the slalom events. Well, not win it, but do very well in those events.
Yeah. So, for instance, last year I made top 10 last year in the judging. I was disqualified because I didn't get through all those 3 events, and a lot of cars are really high-end cars, in whether they're in the pavilion or not, but they judge really well. But a lot of them don't really get it set up to drive on the track very well, and or some of them don't want to beat up their cars. They love them too much.
Yep.
Yeah, that car was built to drive.
Yeah. Yep. So talk us through that. Do you? I guess it's hard to. You might not be able to answer this honestly, but is it hard to practice for those sorts of things? Did you go down on Wednesday nights and practice the 8th mile, or
I used to?
Yeah.
I've been going to Motorvation. Well, I was going to Motorvation probably since for 20 years, probably.
Yeah.
Stopped for a long time period while I had kids and that, but I mean, I've been around driving, drags, all that kind of stuff. As for taking that event and those events out, the car makes a big difference. Some of the cars have way too much power and they just blow the tyres off. That being a car that's really drivable, handles really well, makes it a pretty good all-rounder for that kind of event. I'm sure if I lined most of those cars up in an 8th mile on a prep track, they would probably be they'd be over the finish line before I barely left.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. Righto. Yep. I noticed you took out first place in all 3 of those. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought as much. Talk us through what it's like beating. These just some names here. Like you beat Nigel Waugh and Dean Ricard as well. So it was interesting to watch their different driving techniques, and Simon as well. Simon Birch was in that as well. Techniques, and what I mean, I say that. Some of those cars for the slalom weren't, especially Simon's, I don't think was really set up for a slalom event. But it was, you could see the different techniques, but obviously you honed that skill, or you just rocked up there on the day and said, like, this is what I'm going to do?
No, look, my plan on the day was, I guess I've watched it for a fair few years, and you see, cars like Simon's, they're probably not made for handling, but such an awesome car, and the guy gives it everything. But and then there's cars like Nigel's, which have just got ridiculous power. I guess I pulled up the line thinking I'll ease it off and just try and could see the track was really marbly, so I just sort of eased it off the line and just tried to just nurse it till I got traction, and then tried to get into it a bit, and it just made it consistent. I guess is probably the biggest thing, is consistent across all 3.
Yeah. No, I can certainly understand that. You actually drove the car to the track and back home, didn't you?
I ended up. I was supposed to drive it there. I ended up driving it home. I got it there on a tilt tray because it just had it cleaned. But look, I drove to work the day before and it sat in the car park all day. So I generally drive it all the time. It goes to Hillary's with the kids and Christmas light cruises and all sorts of aircon running.
That's good.
Yeah. That is awesome to hear, because we don't want the grand champion. Look, I mean, we've had plenty of grand champions before. And that's not to say that trailering the car there is bad. It's certainly not. But I think there's a certain amount of
Well, Nick, when you're spending a lot of money on detailing the day before, then it's cheap insurance and then a lot less work when you get to the event.
Yeah. But I think what we're trying to say here is that is a driven car. You know, it's
100%.
It's I think that adds to the accolade, really, in my opinion, the grand champion part of it, actually driving it home at least. But I get the detailing part of it, where it needs to go on a tilt tray as well.
Most of the previous champions are driven cars. Like if you go back to all the other ones, back to like Ralph's 32.
True. Yep.
I mean, that car is actually, that's the thing with that car that I wanted to build. It's street driven, but it's actually licensed exactly how it is. There's nothing like, I know I've had cars and you license them and then you go and change them.
Change stuff, yeah.
That one is exactly how it went over the licensing. There's nothing that's changed. Every pipe, everything that's on that car is exactly how it's licensed. So that's what our aim was I didn't want something that was going to drive to an event and then try and drive home and get pulled over and then spend the next 6 months getting a sticker off it. There's nothing that's not on there.
Tell us about that then. It's not in my notes. I didn't actually know that. I'm not always comfortable asking that question, because it may be a contentious issue for some people if they do have the car license, but not with the way it is. Talk us through that then. Like, so a lot of our listeners don't understand what's involved in the engineering aspect. Like what we try and tell even in our club is to get the car, get the approvals first. So we call it build the car on paper. Is that the path you took as well? Built the car on paper, then got it approved, then get it engineered and go down that path?
So that car there that engine wasn't built for that car. It was actually built for another one that's hopefully Motorvation 24's grand champion. We'll see.
Okay.
But that was why that engine went into that car, because the car I was building it for, they were getting so strict with all the cubic capacity testing and all that kind of stuff. And I thought there's no point even trying to make this work. So that motor, that car's a long way off and has been 10 years in the build. So that motor was sitting there, and I thought, you know what, let's build something that I can drive and license and put the kids in on a Sunday and go for a drive. And that's where the Camaro came in. It fits the capacity, horsepower, everything. It went through the whole lot with engineering. So dyno testing in front of the engineer, cubic capacity testing. Everything on the car had to be brake testing. I mean, that's probably the worst bit of building the car. It's not much fun going through all that, but the fact that it's gone through that just makes it so much more comfortable to drive. You just know that it's been built legally and there's no dramas with it.
Yeah. So people that are listening, what I try and tell everyone is that they shouldn't be afraid of that. That there are some really good engineers in Western Australia. You can find them on the Department of Transport website, by the way. There's a list of signatories, they're called. There's a list of them there, but we shouldn't be scared of that process, because you'd be surprised how open these engineers are to modifications.
Yeah, look, it wasn't hard at all. I mean, it's ticking boxes. Obviously, the licensing centre came back with a list of things. You pass that on to them. The guy I use is unfortunately retiring now. I've used him for a long time, but once you've tick that one off, tick the noise testing off, it's just tick boxes. Yep, he's done all them, and then you take that with you. And everyone's scared of the licensing centre, and I was too. Actually going to because you can go to a licensing centre or to with a non-modified car, you can go to a normal licensing shop or whatever it is. Whereas you have to go to the licensing centre, when those guys are supposed to be the big scary ones. But the guys there were really good. Loved the car. Things that they wanted me to fix, and as long as they weren't safety issues, he gave them to me and said, "Look, I want you to fix this." But I thought they were going to be terrible, thinking, "No, I don't want this thing on the road." But they were so good, and I can't complain about that process at all.
Some of them, I mean, we won't mention their names, but some of them we actually know, don't we? I mean, I'm sure one of them was actually working where you went, but I know that a lot of those guys these days are rev heads themselves as well, and build cars. So they're not only certified to sign off on it, but also they're in the scene. They understand what your wants and needs are as well, just like everyone else's. So that's really good to hear. I didn't have that on my list, but I'm glad you brought that up actually.
So can I just ask a question? Based on that, did you buy the Camaro for that engine, or did you already have the Camaro?
No, so I always I actually just finished building a HZ Ute, similar sort of way. Had an LS in it, aircon, the whole lot, built as a nice street driver. 2 seats and 3 kids and a wife doesn't really work real well, but I had a Ute when as my first car, so I built that one. But I always wanted a Camaro, and a mate of mine had this one for years, just in primer, in bits, sitting in their shed. And I was on the phone to him just talking about random car stuff, and he said, "Oh, look, I might get rid of the Camaro." And I don't know, by the end of the conversation, my Ute was for sale. That was literally, I hadn't even driven it, gone through engineering, and it was just about to be licensed. Ute was for sale, and the Camaro deal was done. So I drove the Ute to the licensing centre, licensed it, drove it straight to the guy that bought it, never drove it again. Right. Got one lap around the block.
Wow.
That's incredible. There you go.
And that's disappeared, that Ute. I don't know where it's gone. It's somewhere in Perth.
Yeah, okay.
So would you have bought a Camaro if you think that one wasn't available? Would you gone down that sort of path?
I don't think I would have. Probably not. No, I probably would have still had the Ute, and the other car I'm doing, my EH that I've had for 10 years. That's the car that's been the long-term goal to get that one done. So it's just that particular car was available, and it's exactly the
timing.
Timing was the right time, and I don't regret selling the Ute. I'd love the Camaro. So
no, and it's 69. It's one of my favourites as well. It's got just that awesome front. That's what you had as well, wasn't it? Yeah, 69 as well. Yeah, I think they're that. You just walked into my next question. Basically, what was the inspiration for the build? But it's funny how cars come up in life and they turn into, that might be, you weren't dreaming about a Camaro, but it came up and there it was, and the opportunity was there to go.
Yeah, so it was an unfinished project, obviously, and his plans for it were different to mine. So he had a big block for it. He had custom big block headers. It was that was going that direction, and I'm as much as most people's discussed, I love my modern engines and just love that something you can flick the ignition and the injection and everything works. So he probably didn't like that idea, but that's where I got it as an unfinished project and took a just different path from what he was.
There's nothing wrong with either path, but if you look down the path that you've taken, I think, what do you reckon, 80, 90% of people are going in that direction?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a huge amount of people that love what do you call them, resto mods or whatever you want to do, modern. Yeah, and then there's also a huge following of the old muscle, just that torquey big block with 15-inch wheels and big tyres as well. So
yeah,
maybe standout. I think the standout cars are the ones that go that way because they do look different than the factory cars. But
well, I just think that that even that Pro Touring look as well. It's all sort of and late model. The LS motor and the Coyote motors are kind of leading us down that path, aren't they? I mean, I can't. It's hard to deny that that's the path to take. Nothing wrong with carburetors and a manifold and that sort of thing as well. But I can understand why you've gone down that path and why that is attractive to a lot of people these days. Talking about the engine, then talk us through that power plant. So it's 408 cubes, is that right?
Yeah, so it's a 6-litre iron block, and then it's been bored and stroked. It's got Frankenstein heads on it, an early set of Frankenstein heads when they were doing prototypes, and made about just over 500 at the tyres, so decent power. I mean, it's not these days. It's pretty average, I suppose. Lots of people are putting out huge numbers now, but I guess probably 5 years ago I would have been a horsepower hero almost with that car.
I don't know. I'm sure I don't drive too many cars myself that are 500 horsepower, so I think it's pretty stout. But anyway.
Yeah, there's actually a new motor being built for it at the moment. Same specs, everything, but yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. That's quite the combo there. Talk us through the subframe as well. The heights, I think that's how you say it. Heights, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Heights front end. It's one of the American brands. There's a heap of them that build. That's the great thing about American cars is you can buy 100 different subframes, 100 different rear ends. It's just about teaming the right stuff up. But it's obviously their front end, their wishbones, coilovers, everything like that, and then it's got a right-hand drive conversion that was done.
Oh, wow.
Here. So, yeah, they don't do a right-hand drive version, so it's sort of our version of their front end as well.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, that's interesting. So you fitted that yourself?
So, as I said, unfinished project, so it was all fitted partly, but with a big block setup, so we had to move all the steering to allow for the LS. Yep. Good friend of mine, Lee, from Revenge Motorsport, probably shouldn't say that name because he doesn't want any more business. But he's a really smart guy, and he moved a lot of that stuff around and made it all work. And he was involved in the car before I bought it as well.
Yep. Talk us through the rear end as well. It's a Detroit Speed rear end as well, and obviously wheelwood disc brakes. I think it's sort of every car, every choice of everyone these days, isn't it?
Yeah. So the rear end is Detroit Speed Shop. They do a full mini tub kit. They adjust the rails, the whole lot. Great thing about American cars, again, off-the-shelf kit that goes in. And then, the rear end's a 9-inch rear end with wheelwoods on it.
Yeah, okay. Yep. One thing we never do a lot of, and I probably should do more of myself, is to talk more about the pro touring scene. For the uninitiated, talk us through the pro touring scene. We've only ever had one guest on before that's had like in that sort of vein of cars. So talk us through that scene.
The scene I'm probably not much of a part of. I'm someone that just builds something that I like the look of. So it's not even that I'm part of the pro touring scene. I like that look of those cars. I'm probably members of lots of groups online that I've just clicked to and more for inspirational ideas when I was putting the car together. But I wouldn't really say I'm even part of that scene. It's just more like the look, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that look, it just becomes part of that scene. So because you're modernising everything, and with the Camaro, everything's just off the shelf, accessible. So it's so easy to just change the geometry and the handling of it just by buying off the shelf parts. And it's obviously that scene's massive in America. So
we seem to like them lower in Australia. That's the only thing I've noticed when I look at a lot of them. Mine's a lot lower than mine. That's the whole thing. When I was growing up was get them low, get them down on the ground. But that's something I don't notice all of them in doing. Yeah.
It's for those that aren't uninitiated, I guess you would call it. It's modernising an older vehicle, but also enabling it to be driven more extensively, isn't it?
You're going resto mod, which is the modernising side of it, like with your LS and your updated, suspension and brakes, and then you're going Pro Touring's that next level where you're going to sort of want to beat up on it a bit more and maybe do some track days. Collie Motorplex. We used to have an event here called Apocalypse. That's
right, Apocalypse.
Remember? Yeah, it was just it was similar to what those track days that they have in America. So I think that's just Pro Touring's just that ultimate next level.
Yeah.
Probably a good example of it.
Really interesting question I have for you then is for someone that's listening right now, that's young, maybe
young people listen to us.
Yeah, I hope so. You're 14, 15, 16, 17, or maybe even older, but you're thinking of building a car that's worthy of Grand Champion status. What's your message to them?
Probably just take on a project that's something you love. So don't go just looking at my mate's into Monaro. So you want to find something that's really just a shape or a car that you love, and then just don't listen. Everyone told me off putting you should put a big block in. What a waste of a Camaro, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I'm sure all the LSs are supposed to be cheap horsepower, but they're not. I probably could have done a big block for the similar sort of money. Just listen to just do it the way you want to do it, because you'll never be happy with it if you keep building it or painting it a colour that your friend likes better. You've really got to do the way you want to do it.
Yeah. And I think maybe in regards to motivation specifically, or even some of that, if you want to win the Grand Champion Awards, it's not always about the show side of it. It's about the driving as well. So if you're going to build a show car and you want to win Grand Champion, then you've got to be prepared to drive it, pretty full on, and it has to obviously handle and at least do the driving events, reasonably well to be competitive for the trophy, I suppose.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I found that last year, but that's a big thing, is making it so you can drive it as well. So it's one thing getting a huge power plant in there, but if a thing doesn't drive, it's not going to be able to do most of the events you need to do. Yeah,
because the Salem is the one that really struck me. Is that's not, a lot of people probably think it's easy, but that doesn't appear to be easy at all. I think
it's even worse at some of that's from what I've heard as well. I think it's so tight on that strip that they do it on.
Yeah.
Happy would probably be the best one to ask about that. He's done both, but I know it's.
Happy's he did really well. That was a brand new build as well when he took it over there, and he's to drive a ton of ute and do well in those events, that's a pretty big thing too.
I want to talk about outside of the car scene, like you do. I've also noticed you're a junior baseball coach. You commit quite heavily to that side of things.
Yeah.
Talk us through. So how do you find the times? You build the Grand Champion winning car. You participated in Motorvation, which is, 4 days, and that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's right in the middle of baseball season.
It is, yeah. So I was actually pretty lucky. I'd got someone to stand in for me to coach that day, and then the hot weather policy kicked in, so my team didn't end up playing that day anyway. So
okay.
But it takes up a huge amount of my time, and I've been doing that a long time as well. So it's two passions, I guess. There's a lot of times they conflict, and I miss out on cars and coffee and all that kind of stuff. So I was pretty rapt that all the stars aligned for Motorvation weekend and managed to get through that without any guilt of missing out on other things. But I got into that for my oldest boy. He's a mad baseballer, and I've sort of ended up probably doing more time in it than he does. So
it's funny because we all travel that journey, don't we? And it's hard because I know Johnny, his son's very heavily involved in soccer. My kids, I won't say heavily involved, but they do footy. You commit not just your children's time, but your own time to baseball. It's so hard for car guys, if they have kids of our age, that are participating in junior sport, because you want to be involved in that as well, don't you?
Yeah. Look, it's so the amount of time that we put into baseball itself is I think I've coached 15 teams now from getting into it. For T-ball, my young bloke just started out and they needed a coach, and it's just the amount of time you put into your kids, and then your sort of passions get put aside for a while. I'm sure I'll be doing cars until the day I die, so I guess I'll catch up on them later.
Yeah. Sure. Do you use one discipline in the other? Does being a coach help you build a car? Does that is anything that?
No, coaching probably takes away from it because I don't really get any that spare time that I used to get. So like you get to a weekend and you've just been coaching all day, you get back, I should go clean those bits in the shed, and you get back and you're too knackered to even touch them. So it does delay things a lot. But yeah.
You talk to the kids about cars at all? Like
Yeah, I thought, when you just first have kids, you think, they're all going to be mad car nuts, and they all grow up different. My oldest is sporty, little geek that loves computer games and awesome at school, probably completely different to what I was. And then, so that's my, I guess, common interest with him. And then my youngest, my little girl in the middle, she's obviously got her interests, and I try and show interest in dance and all that kind of stuff. But and then my youngest, I think I finally got there, and he's a mad car nut. He's always wanted to pull things apart. So
that's good.
Yeah, we had his motorbike apart on the weekend, and he wanted to be involved in that. So it's good having someone following on.
Yeah. Do you find like kids in Johnny's soccer team like are interested in cars? Like come to you?
No, not yet anyway. But I think that's coming. They're in the age now; they're getting their license within the next year or so.
Yeah.
And you're starting to sort of see them looking for cars and trying to figure out like what they're going to be getting or what they're going to be driving.
And I thought they might come to you as well, come to you like for some mentorship in terms of the right car or...
Not yet.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting. I actually had that exact moment with my oldest thinking, he's talking about cars, and he said, when I get older, I might have a car like a friend of ours' parents. I was thinking, what car have they got? And it was a Honda Odyssey, so I was thinking, oh no, this is not going to work with him. It was the aeroplane seats apparently is what was the selling point.
They have their own niche market, don't they? The Honda Odyssey.
Yeah,
they do. They're quite popular in amongst their. If you've got one, I think you become a customer for life of Honda. I asked this question of our car builders, but where to in 10 years' time? Like, I mean, I'm not talking about you just yourself, but where do you see the scene going, the actual overall scene in 10 years from now?
Well, I guess fuel prices and things, everyone talks about it, but it is a thing. There's it's only so long you can keep a gas guzzler in the shed, and eventually you're going to have to look at, scary as it is, a hybrid or something. I'm sure there'll be conversions of LSs. There'll be just the same thing happening with buying a RAV4 engine and putting it into Camaro or something. I don't know. I can't see me doing it, but I'm sure it'll be on the cards for some people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We asked the same question, and everyone sort of comes back with that. They do see a world in our scene where we're going towards an EV sort of upgrade, and, I'm not kind of on board with that, but I guess it's not up for me.
I think it's further away than what we actually think it is. You know what I mean? I don't think they're scaring us to think it's coming real soon, but I still think it's still a fair way away.
Yeah, 10 years anyway. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah. For kids that are listening, getting back to kids, for kids that are listening, 69 Camaros are getting tough to find. What would you suggest to someone these days? Like, what sort of car should they be looking at? Like, because that Camaro is not for everyone, but something more late model. Where would you pitch?
I guess look, every time you look at a model of Commodore, the one before it's just gone up in value. So Commodores are something that you can see always going to be increasing in value. Still easy enough to get parts for, but like VKs when I was younger are a dime a dozen. Now you try and get a VK, everyone they're really popular. VLs, same thing. VNs, same thing starting to happen. So I don't know. I don't know if a VT will have the same appeal to a young bloke, but I guess they've always been someone's car that they looked at and envied at some stage. They were always the brand new car for someone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we don't know the answer to that, really.
I was thinking the same thing the other day. I thought, like, because obviously my son's going to get, licensed, and thinking, like, what's his, like, if he has to stay in the Ford family, like, what's his car going to be? Like, what would, and, it's in that mid-90s EFEL, EBED sort of.
They're getting hard now, EBED.
Yeah, they are. But you can still, like, if you want to create your own car, like if you want to buy something, an XR8, something original, then it's going to be harder to buy. But if you want to buy, if you want to create something yourself for, a motivation or a show car or a street machine, the potential is there to just buy something and gut it and do your LS or your Barrow conversion or something else, your Coyote, you know what I mean? Just maybe some Coyotes are going to go into those sort of cars now instead of instead of your Windsors and Clevelands.
Yeah. Look, rear wheel drives, I think, is going to be the thing that's probably going to be the hardest thing to drive. You want something that's that kind of scene. You really want a rear wheel drive car.
Yeah,
and they're probably maybe the BMWs and things like that. Who knows?
Yeah. It's a very good question. So you talked about what other builds have you got on the go?
So, where does this get publicised?
Oh no, he can't. He goes everywhere.
No, I'm joking. No, so there's a VK. So my EH I started when my 14-year-old was a baby. Well, I got it on the road then, and I drove it for about 6 months, and it wasn't really good enough. So pulled it off the road to do mini tubs. 12 years later ish, I'm still not finished. Most of that's been through paint and panel, and we started off just, all right, we'll take the paint off it, and it wasn't my car when it came back. There was just nothing left under the paint.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So one of those lovely stories, and in that time, while I've been sort of slowly building that one, I've built a few cars in between. So that one there is painted now. It's being assembled. I saw the tail lights and everything go on the other day. So the guy my mate that's wiring it's got that happening, and so I'm really aiming to have it for Motorvation as an unveiling for next year. That one's a little bit different. That's a blown LS in that one.
Wow. Okay.
So, but yeah, probably a next level of car, the one I've got now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing
that's next
that.
level, then.
Yeah, that's a definite grand champion winner.
Yeah.
Well, see how we go. See where we go. It's not. I mean, I say next level, but next level these days is just. When I was building that 10 years ago, it was crazy level. Now it's pretty standard.
Yeah,
People build some pretty high end stuff.
Yeah. So, any plans to go summer nats, or is?
Yeah. I guess the videos that come up online scare you off a little bit with I don't really want anyone grabbing the guards and lifting the car or head falling against a guard like I saw in a video. But I guess it's just that's YouTube.
Yeah.
You only see the bad bits.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, that one there I plan to travel with a bit.
Okay.
I got an invite to it's Maguire's
Motor-X,
sorry, yeah, with a Camaro. Still on the fence whether to take that. Yeah.
I'll be there.
Johnny will be there.
Oh, really? It's just getting it over there and all the. I've never done that side of things, so I guess that's going to be the biggest challenge is how you get it over there, how you set it up when you're over there in a I guess a foreign city, and trying to.
Oh, we could definitely help there. Yeah.
Oh, really? There you go.
So
I got a car detailer here. I can just send it over and he'll clean it for us.
And would I be right? Am I allowed to say I'll cut it out if I have to? But Stuart's going.
Yes,
That's public knowledge.
Public knowledge.
Yeah,
that
so
55's going over.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's I'm going over with him to help him with that one as well. So yeah, I'm there anyway. So yeah.
Yeah.
And the good thing, I've been over there a couple of times with the WA guys, and because everyone's coming from obviously so far away, everyone chips in and helps out each other, especially in setup and cleaning and all that sort of stuff. So you wouldn't be alone if you took it over there, that's for sure.
Yeah, look, you meet a lot of these guys and you think they'll be territorial over you competing against them, but the car scene's pretty good like that. It's not like a lot of other sports and that you're involved in there. Like I met Stuart through, and he's such a nice guy, and he's just
awesome.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like we've.
Well, he's got to get a trailer and a car to tow it, and he'll be right.
Yeah.
Well, he needs to get a bigger trailer to take Mitchell's over as well.
Oh, no, I think he struggled to get the one for his car as it is.
Yeah, no, I've got the cruiser and the trailer. I could do it, but it's more just
it's a timing thing as well. It's a big commitment, financially and time wise.
Yeah,
to do it. Yeah,
just whether that's the right car to do it with. I mean, I definitely want to do that with EH because it's probably closer to my heart with how much work I put into that and how much blood, sweat, and tears have gone in for so long. That's probably a really one I want to make sure I get the accolades for when it's done.
Yeah, fair enough. No, fair enough. No, we completely understand that. Mitchell, I think that brings us to the end. Unless there was something else we missed, I'm not sure, but I think we've covered it all.
No, that's about it. There's one other car in the garage, and that's the one that I guess I'll do after the EH, and that's a HZ. I want to do drag week, but that's you'll see that when we get there.
Yeah, that sounds. Tell us a bit about that then.
So that was that one there's not supposed to be a show pony or look flash. It's got another LS as keeping it in uniform, but
a collection of LSs over there.
Yeah, turbo LS in that one, and trying to build something that can go over and do drag week, tow a trailer, and have some fun with. It's just a HZU. That was my first car, so I finally got another one of them the same, a full granddad spec, original car, and going to cut it up and turn it into a race car, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to.
I think he's going to be missing a lot more baseball
Yeah, I know.
games.
Those at
A year off.
Kalamunda Rangers,
That's them.
Probably need to get another coach in a few years' time. No, I mean that drag week is or drag challenge. Sorry, I always call it drag week, but drag challenge is in Australia is. I'd love to do that as well one day. I mean, I don't have the car to do it, but
Why can't we take the Camry?
We can take the Camry. Yeah, that
Be
would
consistent. Be consistent. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think it's.
I'd love to be involved in that too. I think it's a cool event.
Yeah. It's not. I don't want to say it's the Holy Grail. I don't think it's the Holy Grail, but I think it's certainly up there in Australia.
I think when you just see all the stories that come along with it, you know what I mean? It just seems like a real cool event to be a part of.
Harry Haig has almost made it the Holy Grail. I mean, when you think about some of his adventures, like he's done the US one and the Australian one every year. I don't think he's missed one. And, it certainly has a certain amount of appeal to it. I would like that event to have more spectators come into it as well. I think it needs to be marketed a little bit differently. I think that would make it more exciting as well.
Yeah.
And more spectators or spectators.
Like make people more aware of how it works and what makes a good drag week car. It's not just about being fast, it's about being able to drive between tracks. It's just pretty big, pretty hard to do.
It's huge. Yeah. No, it definitely is. All right, Mitchell, well, thank you very much. Does the Camaro have a Facebook page or Instagram following at all?
I just got my album on Facebook. That's about it.
Okay. All right. No, fair enough. No, that's all right. Well, look, Mitchell, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was great to have you here, and we'll have to keep in contact over the next few years and follow your adventures with the EH and the HZ as well.
The EH's name's Sequel, if you want to keep an eye out for that one next year.
Awesome.
Number plate Sequel. It's been built twice.
Fair enough. It's a good. It's very catchy. But no, I certainly am. I think that's that would be. Has that been done before? 2 years running, same owner, different cars.
No,
don't think so. That's why I'm pushing hard to make it happen. But I mean, you've still got to beat some pretty crazy cars. So I'm not getting ahead of myself or thinking that it's going to be
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I
it's
don't.
Only it's been done in summer nats by Peter Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Well, sorry, two different incarnations of the same car.
Okay. Righto. Yep.
That's it.
All right. Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much for the invite.
No worries. Take care.
Bye.